great pleasure to be here again. Was bedeutet die Bewegung? We're going to talk about the West-Östlicher Divan of Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. The session will last about an hour, I should think. It was first published in 1819 and owes its inspiration, and you probably know this, to the Persian poet Hafiz from 1320 to 1389. He'd read a translation of it by Joseph von Hammer-Purgstall in 1814, and Goethe called Hafiz his twin and immediately began writing a divan of his own. Not long after, on the 4th of August 1814, Goethe met Marianne von Willemer, and she's very important in the West-Östlicher Divan, with whom he subsequently fell passionately in love. In the poems of the Divan, she became Zuleika to Goethe's own Hatem. We'll talk about that later, which allowed him to give clandestine expression to his love for her. She had come to Frankfurt in 1798 at the age of 14 with the theatrical troupe, and 2 years later, the twice widowed Frankfurt banker Geheimrat Johann Jakob Willemer, whom Goethe had known since 1778, he took her into his home to have her educated with his own children. He then married her on the 27th of September 1814, and by the time Goethe spent the summer of 1815 at the Gerbermühle, Willemer's summer residence outside Frankfurt, the 66-year-old poet was already smitten with the 30-year-old wife of his own benefactor. She returned his love, and although after September 1815 they did not see each other again, they continued to correspond at irregular intervals. Now, the word divan is of Persian origin and originally referred to a kind of list, a kind of register, a sort of record. And in many European languages, the word lingers on. It came to mean border or customs control. So douane in French is the same word, and dogana in Italian. Only later did the word come to designate the collected works of a poet. And in the winter of 1815, Goethe gathered the poems which he had so far completed and arranged them in chronological order. He then prepared the poems for publication in a cycle of 12 books. Only the book of Zuleika and the book of Love concerned his relationship with Marianne. And to accentuate the close collaboration of two kindred spirits and the mingling of two cultures, West-Östlich, he gave each book a transliterated title and its German equivalent. He did not attempt to imitate the metrical form of the originals, which were usually ghazals, but wrote instead rhyming verse, mostly arranged in 4-line stanzas that's characterized by a sort of mellifluous wariness. I can't put it any better than that. We open our recital with a poem from the Buch des Sängers, from the Book of the Singer, rather appropriate. It's called Freisinn. Freisinn translates something like free spirit or open-mindedness. It's a quality that Goethe much admired in the poetry of Hafiz, who always expressed his contempt for those people, I love this phrase, who hugged the shore. Robert Schumann set Freisinn as the second song of Myrten, a collection of 26 songs that he fashioned as his wedding present for his bride, Clara Wieck. Many of the poems of Myrten are pointedly autobiographical, and it seems likely that Schumann chose Goethe's Freisinn to express his scorn for Clara's litigious father, who did everything in his power to prevent Robert from marrying his daughter, Clara. It's a buoyant song, it's marked frisch, and it speaks pointedly of independence, free thought, and a belief in fate. The defiance screams from the opening line, "Lasst mich nur auf meinem Sattel gelten. Let me hold sway in my saddle." And I think this rollicking song is quite simply a V sign to Wieck. Let's hear it. We now come to another song from the book of the singer Phänomen, translates as phenomenon. You probably know that Goethe was something of a scientist, as well as being a great poet and a statesman, and many other things beside. It describes, this wonderful poem, the formation of a rainbow as the sun weds the falling rain. Phänomen was written by the 64-year-old Goethe on his way to Wiesbaden, where he was to meet the 30-year-old Marianne von Willemer for the first time. He didn't know her. The poem describes the formation of a rainbow. In mist or cloud, we are told, the rainbow can seem white, a fact that inspires the poet to end his terse, epigrammatic poem with an objective correlative, fraught with autobiographical significance. Old men should take heart, for even if their hair is white, they shall still find love, a remarkable prophecy of the passionate relationship he was to enjoy with Marianne. The white rainbow is not a product of his imagination. On the 25th of July, 1814, at the start of Goethe's travels in the Rhine and the Main areas, he witnessed this rare phenomenon, a colorless rainbow which he took as a happy omen. The poem was penned on the same day, while Brahms, in his duet version of this poem from Opus 61, achieves his effect through multicolored arpeggios. Wolf depicts the chromatic rainbow by managing to touch in a mere 16 bars almost every known key, a technical tour de force that never once seemed contrived. As somebody enjoying the autumn of his days, I love the final stanza. English first. So, spry old man. Do not lose heart, your hair may be white, yet you will love. So sollst du, munterer Greis, dich nicht betrüben, sind gleich die Haare weiß, doch wirst du lieben. The Book of Love. The third book of the Divan is devoted entirely to love, erotic love. Goethe wrote some of the finest erotic poems in the language and also pornographic poems, if you like that sort of thing. Look at the Venezianische Epigramme, they're extraordinary. This is not pornographic at all. It's called Versunken, and in it he runs his fingers, which he calls der fünfgezackte Kamm, the five-toothed comb, through his beloved's hair and wonders where else his fingers should roam. I always think of that wonderful poem by John Donne, To His Mistress Going to Bed. Has any poet ever used prepositions so sexily? License my roving hands and let them go behind, before, above, between, below. Oh, my America, my newfound land. Schubert responds to Goethe's heightened, amorous mood by breathless semiquavers, shifting tonalities, and a chromaticism that conveys the poet's mounting passion and tumescence.
Von Locken grau sein Haupt so rot,
We now come to one of my favorite of all Schubert love songs. Schubert wrote over 70 songs to poems by Goethe. This is called Geheimes. You have to picture a young man, 18, 19, 20, I don't know, going to a party with his girlfriend, with his beloved. She's a flirt. So what does he do? Does he chaperone her throughout the evening to make sure she behaves? No. He has utter confidence in her. And the poem goes like this. It's so short, it's over in the trice, so let's just go through it. So the German first, über meines Liebchens Äugeln. Äugeln is a remarkable word. Auge, as you know, means eye. Äugeln is to ogle, to flirt, to make eyes at somebody. So über meines Liebchens Äugeln stehen verwundert alle Leute. Everybody in the party, they're amazed at my girlfriend's ability to make eyes at everybody in the room. And then you've got the wonderful contrast. Ich, der Wissende dagegen, weiß recht gut, was das bedeute. But I, who know her, I know very well what it means. And then in the second verse, he says, denn es heißt, ich liebe diesen und nicht etwa den oder jeden. Because it means I love this man, in other words, the lover, and not him or him. And then he rounds on the audience, not on the audience, the guests at the party. He says, so condescending, lasset nur, ihr guten Leute, euer Wundern, euer Sehnen. Give over, stop just admiring her and lusting for her. It will do you no good at all. And then the magic comes. Last verse. Ja, mit ungeheuren Mächten, with immense power, blicket sie wohl in die Runde. She looks around the room with these hot eyes. Why? Doch sie sucht nur zu verkünden ihm die nächste süße Stunde. She's just trying to find her lover's gaze at the back of the room to announce to him, verkünden, die nächste süße Stunde, the next sweet hour when they will be together and make love. The way he sets die nächste süße Stunde is remarkable. The first time in the phrase, it's set to a dotted crotchet. But when it's repeated, it's set to a minim, tied to a crotchet over the bar line, and to a PPP dynamic as the couple anticipate the moment they will lie in each other's arms. It's over in a trice. It's a miracle of complicity.
Über meines Liebchens Äugeln stehen verwundert alle Leute. Ich, der Wissende dagegen, weiß recht gut, was das bedeutet. Weiß recht gut, was das bedeutet. Denn es heißt, ich liebe diesen und nicht etwa den und jenen. Lasset nur, ihr guten Leute, eure Wunden, eure Sinne. Ja, mit ungeheuren Mägden blicket sie wohl in die Runde. süße Stunde, ihm die nächste süße Stunde.
We now come to the Buch des Unmuts, the book of ill humor. It deals with displeasing things. In the poem Elemente, from the Book of the Singer, Goethe expounds the themes that are necessary in a book of poetry. Here's the poem in full, in translation. So what does a book of poems have to contain? Out of how many elements should a genuine song be fed so that ordinary people enjoy it and masters hear it with joy? Let love, above all things, be our theme when we sing. If it can penetrate the song, it will sound all the better. Then the clink of glasses must ring out and the ruby of the wine sound forth, since for lovers, for drinkers, one gestures with the loveliest of wreaths. The clang of weapons is also required, and we must hear the sound of trumpets so that when fortune blazes, the hero may be idolized in victory. Finally, the poet must hate many a thing and not let what is ill-favored live on as though it were beautiful. I think Goethe is saying in this poem, keinen Reimer wird man finden, he's saying that poetry should encompass all that is ugly, disagreeable, and toilsome. So what is the theme of this poem? Essentially, we're dealing with people who refuse to recognize the talents of others. All poets think that they're the best. All fiddlers prefer to play their own melodies. Traditionalists hate new brooms. And divided by mutual contempt, people fail to acknowledge that they're all striving for the same thing. There are 5 Goethe-Lieder by Busoni, composed between 1919 and 1924. And we'll now hear Keinen Reimer wird man finden.
trennen, gegenseitig im Verachten. Keins von beiden wird je bekennen, dass sie nach demselben trachten und das grobe Selbstempfinden haben Leute hart gescholten, die am wenigsten verwinden, wenn die anderen fast gegolten. Und das grobe Selbstempfinden haben Leute hart gescholten, die am wenigsten verwinden, wenn die anderen was gegolten, die am wenigsten verwinden, wenn die anderen was gegolten.
We now come to the book of the Cupbearer. Cupbearer in the Lieder, I think you all know Ganymede by Goethe and Schubert and Wolf. He was the cupbearer to the gods. The cupbearer, this section, the Schenkenbuch, it deals with wine and alcohol. You remember the phrase from the poem I just read, Elemente, then the clink of glasses must ring out and the ruby of the wine sound forth, since for lovers, for drinkers, one gestures with the loveliest of reeds. Schumann set two of these poems, and they occur in the autobiographical work Myrtles that he wrote in 1840 before he was married to Clara and gave it to her as a wedding present. Wine drinking is a familiar motive from the Persian Divan, and the cupbearer, Saki in Arabic and Persian, was traditionally a handsome boy, a pretty boy, who not only served the wine, but listened attentively to the words of wisdom that the bibulous master poet dispensed. Schumann included the two poems in Myrten for deeply personal reasons. Sitz ich allein und setze mir nicht are placed numbers 5 and 6, or as E and F. Are you aware of what Schumann divided his own personality into? Two sides, Eusebius and Florestan. So Eusebius is the inward-looking, shy, introspective, and Florestan is the extrovert. And I don't think this can be a coincidence, especially in Carnival, that wonderful piano work. It too had planned to contain 26 numbers like Myrten, and he also places the movements which depict Eusebius and Florestan as numbers 5 and 6. So this is cryptology. He does it on purpose. He modeled, Goethe modeled Schumann modeled this division of his own personality on this wonderful book by Jean-Paul called Die Pflegeljahre. It was one of Schumann's favorite books. There were two characters in there, Wult and Wald, and they're quite clearly modeled on that. But there's a reason, I think, that why Goethe chose these, why Schumann chose them for this great work. It was to deliver a broadside to Clara's father, Friedrich Wieck, who in his efforts to prevent Robert from marrying Clara had dubbed Schumann a drunkard and as such an unsuitable husband for his beloved daughter. And when, on the 18th of December 1839, all the parties appeared before the Court of Appeal, Wieck was so beside himself that he had to be silenced by the president of the court. And on the 4th of January 1840, the court threw out all of Wieck's accusations, except for the charge that Schumann was a drunkard. The onus now on proving Schumann's addiction to alcohol rested with Wieck. It seems, by the way, that, that Wieck had a point. If you read the diaries of Robert Schumann, you'll see that during 1827, he refers to excessive champagne drinking. He drank a prodigious amount of champagne, and a habit he only threw off many years later. And in 1837, when he was estranged from Clara for a while, he succumbed to despair and tried to drown himself in drink. However, on the 7th of July, the lovers learned that Wieck had failed to produce proof of Schumann's habitual drunkenness, and they married on the 12th of September, some 3 months before the completion of Dichterliebe in the village church of Schönefeld near Leipzig. So these are two poems about drink, really so different. Sitz ich allein, wo kann ich besser sein? And then Setze mir nicht. So we'll hear them together.
Sitz ich allein, wo kann ich besser sein? Meiner Wein trink ich allein, niemand lässt mir schranken, ich hab mein Gedanken. Sitz ich allein, wo kann ich besser sein? Wo kann ich besser sein? Besser sein, besser sein. Setz mir nicht durch Lobin an mir den Krug oder vor die Nase. Wer mir Weib bringt, siehe mich, front mich an, so trieb sich dir ab vor die Glase. Was steht du dort oben aufs Schwelle? Du sollst mir künftig der Schenke sein, jeder Wein ist Falken und Helle.
Fischer-Dieskau very often used to end his recitals, particularly when he was singing Schumann, with that song. Get it? Sitz ich allein, wo kann ich besser sein? Go home. And I hated it when he prefaced it with that. It's a comic song, and all singers need comic songs. People are too serious, too feierlich, too ceremonious, solemn. You know, you can't sing the Wesendonck-Lieder the whole time, or Kindertotenlieder. Every singer needs comic songs. Schumann said very few, Brahms very few. There's one wonderful one, Unüberwindlich, talking about drink. Schubert oddly said 4 or 5. The great masters, of course, are Wolf and Löwe, but I do urge you to learn comic songs, to leaven the mood of your recitals. Also, very oddly, 2 of the greatest composers of comic song are 2 you wouldn't expect at all, Mahler and Beethoven. Absolute gems, so look at them. We now come to a very odd book. It's called Schiffer. The word Schiffer, C-H-I-F-F-E-R, means ciphers or codes. And in this section, Goethe describes how lovers should be able to communicate in code to each other so that nobody else finds out. If, for example, they both had the same edition of the Quran in their hands, they could, by referring to the page number or the numbers of each surah, each chapter or verse, communicate a time for a clandestine meeting. Having explained this, Goethe then quotes the poem we're about to hear in Schumann's version. Dir zu eröffnen, mein Herz verlangt mich. The poem is by Marianne von Willemer, and I think it's difficult to understand, but perhaps it consists of quotations about love. It's called, in Schumann's setting, Liebeslied, love song. It's marked nicht zu rasch, not too fast, aber mit leidenschaftlichem Ausdruck, but with passionate expression. Schumann, of course, loved codes, not just in his piano music, but also in many of his lieder. We've just seen an example of Eusebius and Florestan in those two songs about drink. And there's another very famous example in one of Schumann's most miraculous songs, Moonlit Night, Mondnacht. The poem is by Eichendorff, and it talks about a kiss given by the sky to the earth. Sky in German is masculine, earth is feminine. And so on the human level, it's quite clearly a kiss between lovers. And Schumann wrote to Clara saying, what a musical word the word for marriage is in German. The word for marriage in German is Ehe, E-H-E. In musical notation, E-B-E. And this amazing phrase runs through the piano part, Ehe. And he said in a letter to Clara, what a musikalisches Wort Ehe was. It's very clever, but it's very beautiful. I think you all know the song. But back to this one. I find it difficult to understand this poem, but there's this lapidary sentence that perhaps gives a clue. Wie Sonnenaufgang ward mir ein Vorsatz. A plan dawns on me like sunrise. And at that moment, we hear an echo of the song Aufträge, a Schumann song, the theme of which is messaging between lovers. Perhaps elopement is the idea. It's up to you to decide.
Von deinem
Well, we end our recital with two poems and three songs from the Buch der Zuleika, from the Book of Zuleika. We mentioned earlier that this was a convenient, clandestine way of Marianne and Goethe writing love poems to each other. Marianne was called Zuleika and Goethe was called Hatem. More of that in a minute. The word Zuleika is a variant on the Arabic or Persian name, I can't pronounce it, Zuleika, which means brilliant or beautiful. Marianne contributed 5 poems of her own to the West-Östlicher Divan, which, by the way, Goethe revised. And we're now going to hear this extraordinary song by Wolf called Hochbeglückt in deiner Liebe. It was written by Marianne as a reply to Goethe's Nicht Gelegenheit macht Diebe. You often get this in this book. You get one poem by Goethe and then it's replied to by Marianne. Wolf's song is marked äußerst leidenschaftlich, extremely passionately und sehr lebhaft and very lively. And it has a long prelude that sighs and swoons with desire in every bar. And there's an orgy of syncopation throughout. Wolf instructs the performers to decrease their tempo, ein wenig nachlassend, and then to speed up, zunehmend, thus mirroring what can only be described as tumescence and detumescence. The minus, when I hold you in my arms, of the final phrase in German first, halt ich dich in meinen Armen, jedem Glück ist meines gleich. When I hold you in my arms, my joy is as great as anyone's. This minus is held for an unbelievable 9 beats on a top G. And the 18-bar postlude, marked fortissimo and noch lebhafter and even more lively, gets even faster in the final 8 bars and boasts an F, F, F tremolando in the penultimate bar. A passionate song, if ever there was one. We now come finally to the poem that gives its name to this study session, Was bedeutet die Bewegung, written by Marianne von Willemer and revised by Goethe. In this great poem, Zuleika, stroke Marianne, wonders what the wind portends that she feels on her cheeks. The wind in Persian poetry often acts as a messenger and conveys tidings to a distant beloved. We hear first Mendelssohn's setting. It's a scherzo setting of 1841. He simply calls it Zuleika. It's Opus 57, number 3, by the way. And it's a breathless depiction of Marianne's excited anticipation as she moves from Frankfurt to Heidelberg to meet her lover. So here's the Mendelssohn to start with. Schumann, Mendelssohn's greatest songs, I think, are right up there with Schubert and Brahms and Schumann. Not perhaps the view that is generally held, but if you look at songs like, we were talking to some of the students before this session, look at a poem like Die Liebende schreibt, the woman in love writes a letter, also set by Schubert, also set by Brahms. Mendelssohn's is in a league of its own. And there are many songs like that, so I do urge you to look at Mendelssohn's songs. Goethe's love for Marianne and the part she played in the composition of the West-Östlicher Divan was only revealed decades later by Hermann Grimm in his article Goethe and Zuleika, published in the Preußische Jahrbücher of 1869. Marianne told Grimm, who was then a young student, that 5 of the Divan poems were by her hand, else we wouldn't have known. And according to Max Rüchner, Marianne's 5 poems elevate her to being among the first woman poets in the German language. Goethe continued to correspond with her for the rest of his life, and in his last letter, dated the 10th of February 1832, he enclosed all her correspondence with the request that it should be left unopened bis zu unbestimmte Stunde, until an unspecified time. So neither Mendelssohn nor Schubert would have known that these poems were by Marianne. We end our recital with a very different setting of Was bedeutet die Bewegung. Schubert wrote 2 Zuleikas, Zuleika 1 and Zuleika 2. The poem we've just heard, as I've explained, describes Marianne, her impatience as she traveled from Frankfurt to Goethe to meet her lover in Heidelberg. The 3 days they spent in Heidelberg marked the climax of their brief and passionate relationship. The prelude in this great song in B minor ascends the scale across 2 staves from bass to treble. It's a symbol of the east wind and her mounting passion. And although the soprano does not sing until the 3rd bar, she must react to the feeling of the wind on her face. I think this is one of the most difficult things for singers, to act preludes and Nachspiele and postludes. The ostinato rhythm that you will hear pulsates through the first 5 verses like a throbbing heart. And as her passion mounts, she sings the word dort, D-O-R-T. In German it means there. So she's saying there in Heidelberg. 3 times it's repeated, dort, dort, wo hohe Mauern glühen, where the high walls glow. Those are the walls, the red walls of Heidelberg Castle. Dort finde ich bald den vielgeliebten. I will find my lover. This passion is mirrored in the way the soprano sings this phrase. For the first 2 dorts, she sings an E natural, dort, dort, which rises to an F on the hohe Mauern, and then, incredibly, to an F sharp on the 3rd dort. This is only a semitone higher, but the effect is electric. As the singer, I like to suggest that you advance just a little bit, move forward, and you seem to see in the distance the place where you will meet your lover. The final verse is marked etwas langsamer, rather more slowly, and then it begins. The key shifts to B major. The throbbing semiquavers cease, and the new rhythm and the vocal figuration seem to be almost tremulous with post-coital bliss. Brahms considered Zuleika 1 to be the loveliest song ever written. And before we hear it, can we just look at this last section, German first. Ach, die wahre Herzenskunde, Liebeshauch, erfrischtes Leben, wird mir nur aus seinem Munde, kann mir nur sein Atem geben. So line by line, ach, die wahre Herzenskunde, the true message of the heart, Liebeshauch, the breath of love, erfrischtes Leben, renewed life, wird mir nur aus seinem Munde, very often singers stress it, wird mir nur aus seinem Munde, I think that's wrong, wird mir nur aus seinem Munde, can only come from his lips, kann mir nur sein Atem geben, only his breath can give me this love. And there is a pun. Atem means breath in German, but Goethe's name for himself in this great work is Hartem. So only Hartem can give her the love. It's an extraordinary song.
Was bedeutet die Bewegung? Bringt Jos mit Vollkunde? Seine Spiel in frische Regung, den sechsten frohes Goethe. Seine Spiel in frische Regung, Goethes Herzens tiefe Wunder. Kosen spielt er mit dem Staube, jagt ihn auf vielleicht im Wäldchen, treibt so sehr schön im Laube den sechsten frohes Weiten, treibt so sehr schön im Laube den sechsten frohes Weiten. In den sanfte Sonne glühen, kühlt auch mir die heißen Wohnen. Küsst die Reben noch im Flehen, die auf Feld und Hügel planen. Küsst die Reben noch im Flehen, die auf Feld und Hügel planen. Und mir bringt sein leises Flüstern von den Freunden tausend Grüße. Wenn noch diese Hügel düstern, grüßen mich wohl tausend Küsse. Und so kannst du weiterzählen, den Freunden und Betrübten. Und so kannst du weiterzählen,